morning and welcome to Wake Up West Orange. I noticed as we were coming on set today, Tim's got a new mug, and you may not be able to tell it from the camera, but it's definitely unique. It's the edges. Show them, see if you can kind of show them there, Tim, the edges.
Okay, is that what you mean? Like just sort of the...
Yeah, all the ridges and the everything.
It's not symmetrical? Is that maybe what you're talking about?
Yes.
Is that what you're getting at? Well,
yeah, so what's the story behind the mug?
Well, we recently were out of town and went to a coffee shop there, and it was a local place, you know, to them, a one-off kind of thing, and I like supporting those, but also the coffee was great, and the mugs were for sale, some of them, and so I bought this one, and as we were checking out and leaving and all that, the lady was like, now keep, well, I asked about it, and I thought it was neat because this is kind of resin and it's in the mug. It's not like just a sticker or something. Mm-hmm. And at any rate, she said, well, yeah, a local artist makes these mugs. Okay. And she said, you're the only one that has that one because none of them are alike. Because some of them were skinnier and shorter and wider and different shaped, and none of them were like clean and, like yours is a standard coffee cup that's just, this kind of machine made. Mm-hmm. But anyway,
Special Lipscomb University mug. and Angie, tell us about your mug here.
Well, I went fancy. I went portable is what I did.
Yeah, mobile.
Yes.
Yeah, or whatever.
Styrofoam.
Travel. So anyway, that's it. Yeah, it's just it's a unique thing, a one of a kind. So
well, why don't we make a whole episode webcast based on that coffee?
What a great idea.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, so obviously I think the tie-in there is like things like this mug, we all are the same way. We have nothing about us is exactly perfect per se, and our appearance, if you will, or things about our personality or our choices or our influences, and we are unique in the way that we were created, yet we're also imperfect in other ways, and that's kind of the way it's supposed to be, probably, because we have a look about us, a way about us that is unique into ourselves.
How many years have you been doing youth ministry?
Going into 26.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you think about uniqueness and personalities and all of your experiences and with hundreds of youth now, how does that tie in?
Well, we've been in we've been in a few different churches, actually not that many, but a lot of youth groups because of that. And some, we've had a couple, at one church we had about 120 in the youth group for a while, and then here it's fluctuated depending on, just the time based on how things have been at our church or whatever. But it seems like, here's the funny thing, no matter where we've been, we've lived in really just two states, Alabama and Florida, but I've noticed it wherever we go, and a lot of other events. We go to like a pretty big event that happens in Nashville, and lots of teenagers just all over the place. But you can always, as you see the groups kind of come together and you realize, oh, that's a youth group, you spot what I would maybe call doppelgangers, but the same kids. You're like, oh, they've got a Bennett, or they've got, one of those too. And that's not it's just a fact. It's not a judgmental thing, because I've had, let's see, I don't know, 7, 8 or more Bennett's over the years, because we're going to kind of use him as the example.
And that's a good thing.
It's a great thing, yeah, as if he's watching. But, just those kids kind of, they reappear in a different form in their own unique way. It's another kid that comes along that, a little quirky, but really smart and hilarious and really gets your attention, and yet at the same time, for a short amount of time, might be the one person that bothers everybody or whatever. And then there's another kid that's the athlete, or the girl that's a cheerleader, or somebody that's really smart, or whatever the example might be. It just kind of repeats again. And
right.
but they're still different. It's not the same person. It's just like someone you've known before. So
yeah, and it kind of makes us think that we know, oh, this is what I can expect. I see that very same thing at school, and it's amazing because you'll think, oh, well, this person is going to be just like Big Brother. Oh, no, they're not. They're
right.
just like this person over here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, that's not quite right either. And, we're all unique. Everybody has that one thing that makes us a little different, even if it's not something that's going to make you completely different than somebody else. You're going to have that one thing that's just not quite the same as them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm looking at your mug, and you guys probably can't see this, but from my angle, I can see the inside of his cup, and it's yellow. And if you were just looking at the outside of that cup, you would never expect it to be yellow. You'd expect it to be that
Whatever that is.
cream,
Mm-hmm.
maybe
Stone, something.
yeah. Anyway, you wouldn't expect that bright pop of yellow because of your perspective. And I think that's something that we overlook. We overlook that little thing that's inside us that God sees that, you know, we can't see in somebody else. And sometimes maybe that's what makes us unique is just that one detail that he's put in there for a special purpose.
Sure. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. And just like with youth groups, I experienced it with high school classes, especially sophomore boys. You always, you know, the second semester, they're way more mature than that first semester. They're still coming out of that freshman year. They need more attention. Maybe need to know exactly where the box is for, you know, discipline purposes. But it also makes me think about in Christianity, you know, there's not like a cookie cutter Christian. You know, while we're all made in God's image, we do have our own personalities, our own backgrounds, different things we bring, you know, into our faith.
Yeah.
And you know, somebody that comes to my mind is now deceased, but that made a real, you know, impression upon me in a good way, though it was a different way when I was a teenager, and then I knew him after that. I mean, he lived for several more years. But this gentleman's name was Clifton, and, you know, I had always been around people at church who had either grown up in church or had been a part of a faith community for a while, and were pretty mature, not perfect, but pretty mature. And when he came into faith as someone already retired. And so he had been very worldly, and I won't go into all those details, but he had been very worldly his whole life. And so when he got baptized, when he was converted, when he confessed Christ, you know, it really helped me to understand Ephesians and Colossians when it says, put off the old man, put on the new. You know, I mean, it's true for all of us. We can all go back. Just because you get wet in the water doesn't mean all the worldliness, you know, goes away. But he was very braggadocious. He was very prideful. He talked about himself almost all the time. There was drama almost every week. If there's something he didn't like, everybody heard about it. He would talk about his former escapades, you know, and different things before he became a Christian. He still wanted to talk, even if it's just with me as a teenager. I'd sit there like, pretty sure right now my dad would what you talking to me about this and your former lifestyle. But anyway, you know, a couple of things I guess that it really brought me to was one, he was a Christian, even though he had a lot of growing to do, and we all have growing to do. But it also helped me to see how the church really handled him in a very loving, mature way, because he was someone harder to love. I mean, just being frank here, I would say your average teenager was way more mature than this 70-year-old guy.
Sure.
And so to see, I mean, sometimes he made women feel uncomfortable with statements he would make and so forth. And so the way people loved him, dealt with him, and really accepted him. You know, it was a place where he could belong and he could grow, and he did grow, and he contributed. So anyway, enough on that, but I just, you know, we're all unique, but he's somebody that I learned a lot, both from him and from others loving him.
I think there's a lot of different ways you could tie this, I think, into Scripture, of course. One thing that I thought of was Jesus understood this too. He picks 12 people, 12 guys from varying walks of life. Some knew each other and did the same thing, but many of them were not in that same occupation or you know, way of life or whatever, because some were well educated, some weren't. Some were older than others. Some were wealthier than others. Some, had better self-control than others. All the different things you can think about. But it was kind of like a little youth group thing going on there. That he's like, here's what we're going to do. I want you to go with me, and we're going to do this. And you're not going to do it perfectly. I don't want you to. I want you to do it the way you're going to do it. It'll all end up great. But here we go. And I think there's a lot of lessons to learn there too. That our expectations of people are they going to do it exactly the way I want them to do it, but are we going to do this just together? Mm-hmm. And can we, maybe all of our imperfections together are a whole bunch of oddities that equal the evenness that needs to happen. So, which is kind of what happened with him.
Well, we've all been a part of churches before West Orange, and, it's neat to me even, anytime you get to know a church body, a church family, they all have their own personality. Mm-hmm. You've probably seen that with different youth groups through the years. You see it with different class groups.
Oh, yeah.
You'd see it with different graduating classes in high school. Hey, this class versus the previous class. They all have their own, and that's what keeps things interesting, and that's what gets more accomplished in the world, too, is that,
sure.
He created us with those unique differences that we're able to add flavor and contribute to the world. So,
Well, and what I think is kind of interesting is you went and you picked out this coffee cup,
right?
And it's misshapen. It's.
And I looked at like 7 of them, by the way. I picked, go ahead, sorry.
So you picked just the perfect one for what you were looking for.
Well,
I guess.
It spoke to me.
But that probably would not have been one that I would have picked, just because it's not quite right. But it's the one you picked and chose to use. I probably would have stuck with something that's disposable, because I know, what? I'm going to just throw it away when I'm done.
Right.
But somebody crafted that just in a specific way and took the time to put that, I guess it's a stamp or some kind of, to put the name on there.
Yeah.
And that is the representation. I think that's a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. I think most of the time we tend to look for things like this.
Right.
That's going to be perfect. It's symmetrical. Yes. And it doesn't have that strange little ridge at the top that just would drive me crazy. But, it's the things that drive you crazy that I think we can learn from each other on,
Well, those were, the mug itself, I guess, sure, I can appreciate your figuring or seeing it the way you're talking about. I like that. I appreciate sometimes when things don't go perfectly or exactly the way, first of all, they're not going to. I don't care how much planning you do. It never goes, there's always some kind of hitch or, monkey in the whatever, or I'm not really sure what a monkey has to do with it. But also, and here's the funny part, because this comes up a lot with us when we get together with friends or whatever, those make the best stories too.
They do.
When you break down in the middle of the interstate, in the middle of nowhere like we did, when I was a kid, we always seem to have the craziest stories, like, the vacation movies or something. But that's why a lot of people made it into Scripture. If you think about it, a lot of the stories ended up okay, but there's always the drama, the ups and downs, the valleys and all that, okay, but first this had to happen, and now we got to here, and so now you have the story. I love that kind of stuff.
And it's beautiful how God's in all of that.
Right.
He knows that, and
right.
And sometimes, in our dysfunction, that sometimes He brings the most, beautiful things out of the dysfunction. Like you said, things don't always go right, and yet God shows up. And God reveals Himself, in big ways.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, anything else?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, we love all the unique people at our church and in our own family and relatives, and we need to appreciate each other and value what we all are able to offer. The beauty adds beauty to the world and to our experiences. And we've enjoyed getting to spend this time with you this morning, and we wish you a great rest of the day.